Well, good morning, everyone. Well, we
Good morning.
welcome you to our Making the Dash to Shaking the Salty Habit this morning. As I stated earlier, we are trying something new with our Wellness Wednesdays. We have moved over to Zoom, hoping that we can have more participation and more engagement. And looking at the participation numbers is working already. So this morning we have Hannah Eason, who has been doing a fantastic job with our Do Well, Be Well with Hypertension series. Today she has a really good session on shaking a salty habit. So I'm going to turn it over to Hannah. I'm Sandra Davis. I'm your county extension agent, one of them with Family Community Health. And Hannah is an intern who's been working with us. She's from UT Health. So we are going to turn it over to Hannah and well, I'll talk more at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Hannah and I'm ready to progress the slides when you tell me.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Who you think
Hi,
keeping you
everyone. I'm
busy?
so happy that you've chosen to join us today. I think this is a really good session, my favorite so far. So I'm excited to share some important information and learn together about how we can reduce our sodium intake. So Dr. Davis, if we can go to our next slide, we'll jump right in. All right. So I want to start with kind of letting us share ways before we jump in that we can consider how we look at our food labels to check for sodium in foods. So if you have an idea of one way that maybe you have heard or you try to do to check to see how much sodium is in your food, go ahead and share. You can just unmute yourself and let us know.
So this is an opportunity for you all to talk. You can unmute. Miss Rose has unmuted.
I mean,
Check your labels.
okay,
Check your labels.
yeah, I turn the package over and look at the sodium content, and if it's over, I mean, this is why I'm here. It's like if it's 10% or more or something, I just kind of put it back. So I don't know what the percentage is, so you can help me out there.
Yeah, so that's a great start. And that's actually something we will go over today is kind of how to read those labels and get more confident with that, because it can be kind of confusing when there's a lot of different numbers and percentages on the back of a product. So we'll go over a couple ways to help us read those labels and also use, other labeling that might be on the product on the front to help us understand the amount of sodium that we're putting in our body. So thanks for sharing, and we will definitely build off that throughout today's session. So I'm going to the next slide. So first, I think it's a good idea to kind of think about what sodium is and the role that it plays in our body. So sodium, it is an essential mineral, and it plays an important role in maintaining water balance within our cells. So if you think back to biology, osmosis and diffusion, sodium has a big job in making sure that we have the right amount of water in our cells so that they can function properly. And this allows our nerve impulses and our muscles within our body to do their jobs. So along with potassium, which is a mineral we discussed kind of in our vegetable and fruit week, sodium also plays a key role in our blood sugar or blood pressure regulation, which is very important when we talk about not only DASH, but hypertension. The issue comes, though, in the fact that most Americans, we overeat sodium or food high in sodium. You probably know, but sodium can be found in a lot of different foods. And while it is naturally occurring in some, where as Americans we get most of our sodium is through processed foods. So 77%, if you see the big dark blue area on the pie chart, 77% of the sodium in our diet comes from foods that are processed. So these are things like breads, rolls, pizzas, sandwiches, cold cuts is a big one, cured meats, soups and chicken broths, things like that. So that's where we get the bulk of our sodium intake. The next largest chunk is that naturally occurring sodium. And so that's the one that we expect to have, and that if we're choosing naturally occurring fruits and vegetables and products, that is considered an okay amount. Then the 6% of the sodium that we ingest comes from salt that we add at the table. So when we sit down to eat and we, grab some salt and sprinkle it over our mashed potatoes or our vegetables, that's where we're getting 6% of our sodium. And then finally, we get 5% from adding in salt or seasonings while we are cooking our food. So we'll kind of go through ways today that we can do more than just remove that salt shaker from our table, but we can rethink the foods that we're choosing. We can replace those foods with foods that are lower in sodium. And then finally, we can think about how we can add flavor back to those meals so we don't miss that sodium and we're making ourselves healthier in the process. So like with all components of our diet, the DASH recommends trying to hit a particular amount of sodium for our daily requirement. So DASH recommends that we should limit our sodium intake to about 2,300 milligrams each day. And I know that's kind of hard to visualize and may seem like a lot of sodium, but if you think about it, 2,300 milligrams of sodium, if you think about it in forms of table salt, that's really only 1 teaspoon of salt a day. So if you can see my screen here, in this bag, I have 1 teaspoon of salt. So that would be the entire amount of sodium that you should ideally intake a day. But generally, most Americans, we're eating more like 3,400 milligrams of sodium a which is about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. You can see there, that is what the average American is eating, but some of us are definitely even consuming more than that. I know it's hard to tell on the screen, but it doesn't look that significant, but it really does play a big role in how our heart functions and how we feel overall. So how that happens is the sodium that we eat, it affects the amount of pressure in our blood vessels. So over time, when we have too much pressure and strain being put on our vessels, we can develop high blood pressure. And so by choosing foods that are lower in sodium, we can help to reduce our chances of getting high blood pressure, or we can maintain our blood pressure and keep from having that continued stress on our blood vessels. Because we know that high blood pressure makes us more susceptible to heart attacks, stroke, and cardiovascular diseases, which is definitely we want to take action to prevent. So now, as Ms. Rhodes kind of led us into awesomely, a great place to start on your path to reducing your sodium intake is to check out the nutrition facts on the foods we are choosing to purchase. So you can find sodium listed on nutrition facts. If you can see the screen, it's highlighted in blue. So the label tells us how many milligrams of sodium for a specific serving size, and then that given percentage daily value. And remember, we want to stick around 2,300 milligrams a day. So you can see here that a good rule of thumb is to choose foods that are low in sodium in the percent daily value column. So generally, a good rule of thumb is that a listing of 20% or more is considered high in that percentage daily value, and then 5% or less would be considered low. And so we kind of talked about this the other day when we were discussing the different minerals, and the same rules kind of apply. So low would be anywhere from 0 to 5% of the daily value, and then moderate would be anywhere from 6 to 19% of the daily value. So we can see here with this product, if you're eating 1 cup, which is 1 serving size, you're getting 10% of your daily value of sodium. So that would make this product in the moderate range. But if we are eating more than 1 cup and we're maybe eating the entire container or even 2 servings, we're getting double or more of that percentage daily value of sodium. And that could be 21%, which moves this food into the high the high percentage daily value. So it's really important that not only do we look at these nutrition labels, but we also measure out or consider the amount that we're eating, because just looking and choosing something that looks low sodium, but then eating all of it, it won't give us the real benefit.
Hannah, may I interject?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to bring it to your attention that if you're African American or someone who already has been diagnosed with hypertension, you may, I know for African Americans, instead of the 2,300 milligrams of sodium that Hannah mentioned, we need to stick to 1,500 milligrams. So not the 1,500. If you look at this label, and for whatever that is being served, if we consume the 2 servings, if we had 2 cups of this, whatever it is, we're at 480 milligrams. So we're already at almost a third of what we need for the entire day. So it is, it's really important that if you have hypertension or you're in those high risk categories, Hispanics, African Americans, or someone who has already been diagnosed with hypertension, you really have to understand and look at those numbers and look at the serving sizes so that you're not overdoing it. So just remember, 2,300 is for like the average person, and Hannah's doing a great job. But if you have hypertension, you really need to try to stick to that 1,500 milligrams. Thank you, Hannah.
Good point. Thank you, Dr. Davis. So another way that we can help to keep an eye on how much sodium we are using is not just the nutrition labels, but actually the front of our products as well. So if we can go to our next slide. A lot of the food that you will see in the grocery store will actually have labels on the front that can help us check nutrition claims on the food or beverage product and help us identify maybe ones that contain less sodium. So this is a good, helpful way to start looking and thinking about the foods we're choosing. If the nutrition label is still a little bit frightening or confusing for you, this is a good start. And then over time, we can really master our nutrition labels. So you can see in the different colors on the slide here, but some common claims that you might see in products you pick up at the grocery store would be salt or sodium free. These are products that are less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. So these would be great choices, and they're labeled clearly saying, you know, this is salt or sodium free, and is a great addition to your diet. Another signal you might see is very low sodium. So this would be products that are 35 milligrams of sodium or less per serving. So we always, you know, again, have to remember this is per serving. So if we're eating the whole container, that does change things up on us a little bit. And then low sodium, that is anything that's 140 milligrams of sodium or less per serving. So that's another good option. And then reduced sodium, that is the gray on the screen. That is at least 25% less sodium than the regular or original product. So another, you know, good one, you know, you're making at least a little bit of a reduction on the sodium intake for that product. And then in the yellow, we have light in sodium or lightly salted. So this is 50% less sodium than the regular product. And then finally, we have no salt added or unsalted, which important to note here is that means they're not adding any salt during the process when they're, you know, canning or making this product, but that doesn't mean that it's salt or sodium free unless it's stated. So I know those are kind of all close together and can be confusing, but they're just a good thing to keep an eye out. And then once you see that product, you can look at the back and, you know, decide for yourself if that's a good choice for you to add to your diet. So I have an example here. If you can see my screen, I have 2 cans of diced tomatoes. This one is just a normal like name brand of Rotels. And this one is an HEB no salt added diced tomato. And if I look at the nutrition facts on both of them, a serving size is 1/2 cup for both. So that's a good start. We know we can compare serving sizes directly. And for both of them, a serving has 25 calories. So far they are equivalent, even though this one's no salt added. But if we go down to sodium, on my regular can of diced tomatoes, I see that this can, for 1 serving, has 380 milligrams of sodium, which is 17% of our percentage daily value. So this would be considered a moderate level, leaning towards high on our sodium level. But on my no salt added can, 1 serving has one serving has 15 milligrams of sodium. So that is significantly less than the 380 that we saw here, because that's only 1% of our percentage daily value. So this is definitely an easy switch that can be made to reduce sodium in the same product. And I really think that over time, you wouldn't even notice the difference in flavor. And this is actually the store brand. So in a lot of cases, this might even be cheaper. And you can see here, just the no salt added, really big on the front. It's a good signal. Maybe then you should look at the back and choose this as your product. So that's just one example, but a lot of the canned goods and different products you'll see in the grocery store. Now that we've discussed it, you'll see them, and maybe they'll stick out to you next time you're in the store. So go to the next slide. Perfect. So like we've kind of discussed, for the average person who maybe hasn't been diagnosed with hypertension or high blood pressure, or is not currently on any medications, the DASH eating plan emphasizes focusing around 2,300 milligrams a day. But no matter what your goal is in sodium intake, there's a couple of ways that we can think about reducing the amount of sodium we eat. So we can replace high sodium foods with lower sodium options, like those canned goods there. Because the DASH studies have showed that reducing sodium, even in small amounts, helps reduce blood pressure. So like we talk about kind of every week, all these little things we do, they do add up. Second, we can rethink how and why we prepare meals with added salt or higher sodium foods. And then finally, we can make these small changes over time to better our diets. So we'll go into each of those now. So just getting started, again, we want to make small, manageable steps, take small, manageable steps in order to kind of control the things we eat. So step one would be reduce. There are many ways to reduce the amount of sodium that we are putting into our bodies. First thing is that we should choose lower sodium items in place of regular or higher sodium options. So there are different options when it comes to choosing food with high, moderate, or low sodium levels. But we can again start by comparing the name brand versus the store brand, and then just choose the one with the lower option. That's a quick and easy way to make that switch. Another tip, and this is one that I did not know of and just kind of learned, but we can rinse and drain our canned vegetables. So that way, if maybe we were at the store or we already had these in our pantry and we didn't have the option of the no salt added, we can take these, put them in our colander and rinse them out with some water and really wash away any of that added sodium that might have been put on the tomatoes during the canning process. So I think that's a great tip and something I had never thought about that I'm interested in trying and seeing how that works. And then finally, we can reduce the amount of salt we add to our food when cooking. And we'll go over in just a second some ways that we can do that and kind of be mindful about that, but just not pouring a bunch of salt on while our food is cooking on the stove is another good way to reduce. So step two is replace. So that's another option to change the amount of sodium we eat is by replacing those high sodium foods with lower sodium options. So replacing high sodium purchased food items with lower options, such as chicken broth, that's one way to try. You can try making things on your own because often the things that we make ourselves, they're just going to be naturally lower in sodium because they haven't been as processed. So my advice to you would be to make one small switch every time you run out of something in your pantry and you have to go to the grocery store. So for example, if I run out of kidney beans and I need some for a soup I'm making, next time I go to the store, I'm just going to try to buy either that low sodium or no salt added option if that's available. Making these replacements slowly and over time will help, not only reduce the amount of sodium we're eating, but it'll give our body and our taste buds a chance to adjust to the difference in taste, because we are, we're eating so much salt every day that we are We're used to it. We like we've grown to like the way that our salty foods taste. So by slowly replacing and reducing the amount of sodium we're eating, it won't be such a shock to our taste buds, and we won't really feel like we're missing out. So one way that we can do this is replace the salt that you're used to in our meals with other herbs and spices. These help us to add flavor to our food without adding sodium. So things like citrus and garlic and pepper and other spice blends can be a great way to make sure we're not losing out on flavor, but that we're also not adding too much sodium in our diet. So on the left side of your screen, you can see that 1 cup of regular chicken broth has almost 860 milligrams of sodium. That's quite a lot. But if you look down the thing, you know, reduce sodium, you're at 570. That's a little better. Low sodium, 140. That's a significant difference. And then if you make your own chicken broth at home, you're looking at 12 milligrams of sodium. So that is a great representation of how we can really replace different food items with substitutes that are lower in sodium and just provide the same nutrients and also same flavor by spicing them up with other herbs and spices. And then finally, our third step is rethink. So we want to rethink our habits. I know for me, this is the one that is definitely the hardest. Can we go to the next slide when you get a chance? Sometimes, you know, we add salt to our food because we're used to it and out of habit, rather than because our food really needs it. It's not really a necessity, but it's just something we do subconsciously, and it's done and we're eating it before we've even thought about it. So we want to identify why we are adding salt to the foods we are eating. So are we adding salt to food at the table because we've just always done it, or because we've tasted it and we truly think that this dish needs more salt? Many of us may be unaware of how certain foods taste because we're so used to just tasting the salt that's been put on them. And so you might find that if you add less salt to your food at the table and while cooking it, that you're tasting different things that before were masked with just the saltiness that was kind of taken over our meals. So some popular ones that I know myself and a lot of other people add salt to out of habit are eggs, melons, potatoes. When I have any of those 3 things, I know that I'm quick to grab the salt shaker before I've even tried it or put it in my mouth. So those are, you know, good indicators that we need to be, you know, thinking before we just put it in our mouth or add salt. Another way that we can do this is we can look for add-on items that also may be adding extra calories and sodium to our diet. So things like condiments, sauces, salad dressings, croutons, and cheese. Unfortunately, I know that one's hard because I love cheese. But all of those things, they do have added sodium. And so when we throw them on our meal out of habit, we are also adding that sodium to our diet. So it's not just the straight form of salt that we sprinkle on, but it's all those other things as well that do have sodium, and it adds up throughout our day and can put us over our recommended sodium intake.
And at any time, if anyone has a question, please feel free to stop and ask your question.
Yes, please.
I have a question. Okay, I'm going back to, you know, making your own chicken broth. All right, so you're talking about like boiling chicken, and let's say you're making chicken for some other recipe. All right, and you don't need to use that chicken broth at that time. How long can you keep that chicken broth? I know you put it in the refrigerator, but how long would it, you know, do you have to use it within that day or the next day?
So it can definitely stay in your fridge for about a week or maybe even more. But a good thing is you can always throw that in the freezer. I would say when I make chicken broth, I'll put it in a Tupperware container and I can freeze it. You can freeze it for months. And then when I know, you know, I'm going to make soup or I need a little bit of chicken broth, I just will defrost it and it's ready to go. And it's just as convenient as opening a jug and pouring it in. So utilize your freezer is a good tip for that.
Okay.
Right. And I would say if you're going to keep it in the fridge, no more than 3 days. Just, yeah. I would just say 3 days. And then you can freeze, you know, I've seen people freezing herbs and just freeze. I would prefer that you freeze it. And then if you don't need a lot, maybe freeze it in smaller containers or even the little old fashioned ice cube things. You know, once it's frozen, then put it in Ziploc bags and, you know, whatever, you just take it out when you need it. But that's a great point.
Okay, how long did you say you could freeze it?
Oh, you can freeze it for almost 6 months to a year, but you'll probably use it within that time. But it's better if you freeze it than if you just leave it in your refrigerator.
Okay, if you do leave it in the refrigerator, if you think you're going to be using it like within 3 days, did you say?
Yes, 3 days. I would say 3 days.
I like that idea of the ice cube tray.
Yes.
Great one.
And then just, you know, once they're frozen, you know, take them out and place them in a Ziploc bag, a freezer bag. And then when you need them, just take out as many as you need.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I see here that iPhone Vera Bowers, do you have a question?
The garlic powder is what I normally use. How does that compare to the salt rather than using salt?
Garlic powder is definitely a better option than throwing, you know, adding salt. I definitely use a lot of garlic powder. We want to be, you know, careful to make sure we're choosing the garlic powder instead of the garlic salt, because I know sometimes I've seen, you know, my mom, for example, she'll grab one out and put it in and it's the garlic salt. So in that case, wouldn't be as good. But garlic is a great way to add flavor to our food and make sure we're not getting as much sodium. So that's a great suggestion.
And Miss Bowers, I would ask you to compare the next time you're at the store. Powder is always much better than salt. So the next time that you're at the store, pick up garlic powder and pick up garlic salt. And you look at that label on the back and you look at how much more sodium is in the salt. And that goes, you know, we love seasonings. We love the Slap Your Mama, the Tony Chachere's and all that, but those are just so high in sodium. And as Hannah pointed out, you can use a lot of herbs and, you know, different things, but opposed to, you know, we season it to where we're just tasting the seasoning, not actually the food. So great point, Hannah.
Yeah. And that also, you know, not only in the seasonings that, you know, the pre-made mixed seasonings, they can be high in sodium. And then also, like we mentioned, those condiments. So like ranch dressing, I know most people really love ranch as a dipping sauce or salad dressing, but just 2 tablespoons of ranch has 287 milligrams of sodium. So, you know, think about that. Maybe we can make a dressing that's lighter in sodium, you know, maybe a vinaigrette, and make it at home so that we know how much we're putting in there. Because another one is our soy sauce, especially, that is 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So I know that's a common, not only add-on, but component in other dressings and dips. So keep an eye out for kind of hidden sodium that sneaks in, not just what we're putting on our food, but there's others that maybe we aren't aware of until we really take a look at the nutrition labels. So like every week, we want to think about how we can take this new information and this knowledge and implement it into our lives. And I know it can be kind of stressful and seem like a big task, but we don't want it to feel that way. We want it to feel easy and maintainable, because if we make smaller changes over time, we're more likely to stick to them and be successful and overall have a better diet. So whether setting a goal to increase your vegetables or your fruit, or to cut back your sodium, small changes over time are really our green ticket, because they're going to add up. So this week, I'd like you to focus on reducing sodium, and maybe think of a goal of how you're going to do that. So maybe write it down and put it on your fridge, or you know, next to something at your desk where you see it often. And so we want to write down a goal of how we will either reduce, replace, or rethink the sodium that is in the foods that we eat. So like anytime we set a goal, we want to ask ourselves, exactly what am I going to do to help me reduce or prevent high blood pressure, and then make it time sensitive. So how often am I going to do it? So for example, your goal could be, I will compare labels of food and I will choose the lower sodium option when I shop for foods this week. So even if it's just, when you're on the canned food aisle and that's what you focus on today or this week, that's a great start. And we can remember, we can check for not only the labels on the front, but our nutrition labels on the back, and make that one switch and see how it goes. Or maybe my goal could be, I'm going to use the cans I already have. And they may not be low sodium, but I'm going to rinse and drain all of my canned goods before I use them this week. Great way to easily make that change and make sure we're not, wasting what we already have on hand.
And Hannah,
So we want to set a goal each week, no matter how big or small. And really the main thing is just trying to stick to it so that over time we can get a little closer to making the DASH part of our everyday choices. But does anyone have any questions or something they want to share that they think that might be helpful for everyone?
I have a question. And are you better off choosing frozen vegetables over canned vegetables?
So it's really, and Dr. Davis, please jump in if you have a different thought on this, but in my opinion, I think it's really comes down to not only your preference and your lifestyle and what works best for you. We know that, canned and frozen, they're often, preserved at the peak of freshness. So they're just as good as those natural vegetables. We just need to be cautious of any added sauces, syrups, or flavorings that they put on them. So as long as you're, being mindful and looking at the nutrition label, I would say canned or frozen, whatever works best for you is okay.
Fresh, frozen, canned. And that was a great answer, Hannah. You did it. Just be careful when you're purchasing the canned and frozen to see if they're, if they use sodium for preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good questions. And I want to say,
I have one comment or two, and then one's a question. I make soup all the time, and if a person can find chicken breast with skin on it, when you do your broth, you only have to add water. Just, the broth will come out of the skin. And then I add vegetables and, some Italian seasoning and basil and maybe barley if I want to. Pretty natural ingredients without a lot of salt. And I had one other question. If we're, most people over 60 are on high blood pressure pills, would this regulate our intake of salt?
following a DASH diet?
Could you hear me? Most of us over 60, I would say, are controlled by high blood pressure medication. Would our salt intake make a difference in this respect?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, and Hannah, I hope I didn't jump over you.
No, you go.
Well, I'm not only over 60, ma'am. I'm in my 40s, and I take high blood pressure medicine too. So it's something that's I'm very passionate about. So you want to monitor your sodium intake. You want to take your medication, and you want to try to get physical activity. Those are the three that I live by. And yes, if you don't overdo it with your sodium intake, that will help to regulate. And some other things that we've been talking about over these past two or three Wednesdays is the importance of eating the DASH diet or eating plan, eating your fruits and vegetables, 4 to 5 servings, eating your dairy, where dairy will be next week, your protein, your beans and lentils. So we have been going over and building on this session each week to this point. And we have these recorded, so we'll make sure that we send the recordings to you all who have missed the previous weeks, and you can go in and listen to those on YouTube. But yes, eat the better. It's like if you have diabetes, you don't want to eat a lot of foods high in carbs. And so with hypertension, you have to watch the amount of sodium that you take in, because it's going to affect everything else. Your water consumption is important, your exercise, taking your medication as prescribed and your physical activity. That's what I believe in. And I know any doctor would tell you all of that also. Great question, Ms. Sorensen. Did I answer
Thank you for
it?
your information.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that I think that the medication that, that's a great tool. And then our second tool is monitoring how much sodium we're putting in our body. And then together, those things can add up to into bettering our blood pressure or reducing our high blood pressure. So
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and people think, oh, I took my medication so I can eat whatever I want. That's not how that works. They're like pieces of a puzzle. They all fit together. Your medication, your exercise, taking your getting exercise, eating well. So they're like pieces of a puzzle that complete the puzzle, and that the puzzle is your body. So you can't say, oh, I took my high blood pressure medicine, now I'm going to go eat what I want. It doesn't work like that. I had a diabetes class yesterday, and we constantly said we need to, instead of living to eat, we need to eat to live. And that's how we do that, by monitoring what we put in our bodies. And Miss Vera Bowers, I think you were the one who was shaking, you were nodding your head when when Hannah mentioned that people when you sit down at the table, you automatically go for the salt shaker. You haven't even tasted the food, but you just go for it because it's habit. So I was thinking maybe that could be someone's goal this week, maybe 1 or 2 meals. When you go to sit and eat, when you go to grab it, remember Hannah's words and just try to taste the food to see if you actually need it.
Because the more we eat those foods without, the more we maybe move that salt shaker off the table and put it in the cabinet. That way we can't mindlessly do it. But the longer and the more often that we eat foods lower in sodium, the more we'll realize that not only do we not need that sodium, but it actually takes away from some of the great flavors that we can add to our food that have, the natural flavors, or those, herbs and spices and citruses that really add more while not adding too much sodium. So I think in the long run, it'll be something that you actually think, this was not only good for my health, but it made me enjoy the food I was eating more.
And we all love to eat. Are there
Fortunately, I'm not a salt person. I'm in great health.
Good.
Are there any other questions? We really enjoyed you all today. I know we have some people on the phone, and I see some of our normal names, Ms. Navarra. Are there any questions or comments from anyone?
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed this. I've missed the previous ones because I wasn't able to get on. So Zoom made it much easier. In fact, it was easy to get on. So I look forward to the previous recordings because this was very informative. So thank you.
Yeah.
So if you have not, I don't know if Susan has your email addresses, but
I think she does.
okay, make sure. So if
For
Susan has your email address, you can call her. The number is 713-274-0968. I'll repeat it, 713-274-0968. Make sure that she has your email address.
Yeah, she does, but I'll give her a call just to
Can
make
you
sure.
put that in the chat, please?
Okay, and I know she has yours, Ms. Rose.
Yeah.
Can one of my coworkers put it in the chat? So she will send you the link for the past couple of classes on our YouTube channel, and you just have to click that. And I saw some of you taking notes. She will also send you some the slides used. And I want to take this time. We have a Walk Across Texas program, which is a team of 8 who commit to walking 833 miles together over 8 weeks. So it comes down to about 12 miles a week per person. We're starting our Walk Across Texas on Sunday, February 28th, and we are walking until April 24th. If you are not able to join a team, then we will place you on a team where you just call in each week and say, I walked this amount of miles the previous week. The goal is that after 8 weeks of physical activity, you've developed a healthy habit and something that you will continue. And don't feel like, oh, I can't walk 12 miles. Don't let that scare you. Start somewhere. I promise you, if you start somewhere, you will feel much better. So
Yes.
start somewhere, even if it's a mile a week, or you set your own goal. But the goal is to just start somewhere and get to move more. So if you want to join us on our challenge, let Susan know when you call her. And as I stated, for the month of March, we are going to do something a little different. March 3rd, we're going to continue our series on the DASH. And Amanda's going to discuss dairy next week, and how dairy, the nutrients help to manage and control our blood pressure. I was talking about blood glucose, but our blood pressure. And on March 17th, so we got March 3rd, we're going to do March 17th. March 17th, Christina and Laura, they're going to do some great things, hands-on, on rethinking your drink. So our rethinking your drink on March 17th, and then on March 31st, Hannah, Amanda, and I, and also
What was it? Repeat.
rethink your drink on March 17th. And on March 31st, we're going to do some fun with charcuterie boards. So
Oh, rethink your drink.
yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
And Susan's going to send the flyers out. I just want to get you all as excited as we are to do something different in March.
Mhm.
So it is.
Okay, great.
Yes, we're trying. We want to hear from you we want to hear from you on topics that you want. And we want to hear, well, I think you all have said that Zoom works much better than Teams.
Yes, yes.
So we're excited to hear
Where
that.
was the 12-mile walk?
Walk across Texas starts Sunday. So if you walk a mile on Sunday, you walk a mile every day, then you can join a team, or you can just call in and let us know how many miles you walk. And we're trying to just get people out. We've dealt with so much in 2020 and 2021. We're just, we got to change our mindset and just think about something positive. So
I'm still not straight on it. Do we walk on our own?
Yes. And you know what? It's not only
Okay.
walking. It's not only walking. I did mention that, but it could be gardening. It can be dancing. It can be cleaning your house.
Okay.
20 minutes of constant movement.
Oh, good. I do
equals a mile.
that all the time.
You
So
know,
it's not only walking, it's any type of physical activity. If you go bicycle riding, if you line dance, if you swim, any type of movement, 20 minutes equates to a mile. Or if you have a Fitbit, any type of tracking device, and it tracks your miles, or if you go walk on a measured walking trail, any of that. So if you want more information, definitely call us. We would love to have you join a team or join our large team.
Okay, could I ask a question about that? My group this time, we've got four complete teams.
Each day.
Oh, okay. And what I wanted to ask you is, I've also, like, if it's a bad day or something outside, it's raining, I've told my group, you can get up, walk around your house, or during commercials, get up and walk in place. Is that correct?
Yes, I do that all the time. When the weather's bad and I need to get my miles in, I just start my watch and I watch TV and I walk in place, or jog in place. It's just moving. You got to move. Mm-hmm. And online they have a lot of YouTube has a lot of YouTube. I'm not promoting YouTube, but they have walk across. It's a lady.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: if you are doing, like, I do a video with a resistance cord, and I'm not actually walking, I'm doing strength training. All right, if you do that, I noticed on the activity equivalent sheet, which was really beneficial, it said that you could add, and I didn't do this last time because I didn't think about it, but let's say, I'm not moving, I'm not getting steps in, but I am doing a video. Can I count that as whatever? I think the equivalent was like a mile if you do it for 20 minutes. Is that, you can do that?
Yes, you don't have any movement for 20 minutes equates to a mile. And I had a brain freeze, but it came back to me. Walk away the pounds. That's the name of it.
Okay.
It's if you have YouTube and you put on Walk Away the Pounds, she will give you a good workout. She has a 1 mile, she has a 2 mile, and a 3 mile. And not only are you walking, but you're moving, you're kicking, you're doing all types of things. So
Okay, if you do that one, since you're moving a lot, you just count that on your Fitbit, or is that correct?
I do, but on her video, she has it measured out. She tells you we've done a mile, we've done 2 miles, we've done 3 miles. And
Okay.
she warms you up and she cools you down. So it's a good place to start.
Okay, and let me ask you.
If you do sit and be fit, that counts as well.
Okay, what if you do like just strength, like strengthening, like you're standing on your toes or rocking back, you know, can you count that as a minute or 2 minutes, or how would you do that, or not count that at all?
Yes, ma'am, count it. We're going with the honor system. Count it. If you're moving, count it.
Okay. Okay. Just be as yeah. Okay. Very good.
And if you're watching TV and the commercials come on, stand up and walk in place. We just got to move more. I see you smiling, Ms. Vera. That's why I love when we can see, see your faces.
I do my exercises with Hinge Help for my knees. And here lately I haven't been doing it because I'm having some problems. But I can count those exercises also.
Yes, ma'am. Count it. If you're moving for 20 minutes, count it as a mile.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Are there any other questions? It has been a thrill to be with you all today. Let's give Hannah a round of applause. She did a great job.
Thank you.
Hi, Edna. So good to see you. Okay, so we will see you all same place, same time next week, March 3rd. Amanda will be with us, okay? Have a blessed week. And remember, you set a goal and try to come back next week and tell us how that goal worked out for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I hope we recorded this.
Thank